Welcome to the Denverse Summer League edition as Quinn and I just got back from Vegas.
Vegas, baby. A quick 36-hour jaunt in the hottest place on planet Earth for Summer League hype. It was quite the trip, Derek. How are you feeling after?
I've recovered. Yeah. Now that we've had a day in between, I feel like I'm back to normal. It was quite a trip. I think the biggest thing that I learned is Summer League is not really about the games.
No.
I think that it feels a lot like if you were a scout, like that's what your life is like. You're going to watch games that may not be great. You may only care about 3 or 4 players, but it's sort of the atmosphere around Summer League that really like draws you into it.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, the Strip is a giant place, but seeing all the jerseys of different fans, it's like, okay, we are amongst some of the most diehard people to come out here. But yeah, it became very clear early on. It's like, this isn't NBA basketball. This is
No. So we were at the Tuesday game, which the Nuggets lost to the Celtics. They were right there at the end of the third quarter and then completely fell apart. The main storyline was Taco Fall for Boston, which it was not his best game.
No, not at all.
I saw the highlights from his game last night. I guess it would have been Thursday night, and he was just a beast on the defensive end, and we didn't see that at all in the game we went to.
No, I think maybe one block against, I think, like a 6-foot guard for the Nuggets. Like, it was the type of block that any big dude should probably be able to get. It was, 7'6". He looks like a 2K creative player. But I think all around we got to see the worst Nuggets game of Summer League. In that every player that we were hoping played well didn't play all that impressive and have played better games before and since. So, like, what is your takeaway about the young guys?
I mean, I think Goodwin was by far the most impressive that we saw. Like, it's clear that he can be a point guard. Mm-hmm. I think that he fits in well with what the Nuggets are trying to do. If Morris or Murray goes down, I feel comfortable with him stepping in right now. I know we talked about, like, he's not a veteran, and so that worries you. I think Vanderbilt still looks raw. He got 6 fouls right at the start of the third quarter. He only played half of that time, so it was like 6 fouls in 10 minutes for Vanderbilt, and they don't foul out at 6 fouls, so he got to keep playing and played better after the 6th foul. Like, I think he may have only picked up 1 or 2 more fouls after that and sort of
just
found his groove.
Over the course of the game.
And then I thought Welsh, who was really one of the only other players we were really watching, was okay. He did a good job on the defensive end. He made some nice passes. He doesn't have an offensive game.
No. Well, shout out to the Thomas Welsh family. We got to sit by them. They are by far the loudest people there.
They were the only "Let's Go Nuggets" chants in the arena, and one of the little girls who was with them had some creative ways to try to get the Celtics to not make free throws. She would just wait till the last second, and then she would yell "hi" really loudly, which was kind of funny the first 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I honestly was super annoyed by the end, but it was mostly just because I was watching a not NBA game in a gym with a bunch of Celtics fans.
And you lost money on it.
And I lost money. I forgot. Yeah, the first and probably last time that I'll bet on sports in anywhere near the near future. But it was interesting looking at the dudes who were at least a known quantity. Yeah, Brandon Goodwin definitely looked like the most NBA-ready player there. But it'll be interesting with our 3-point guard depth. Each one gets smaller and faster as you go down the depth chart. And I just don't know who I just don't know if Goodwin – I think Goodwin is an NBA point guard. I don't know if he fits best on the Nuggets. But that'll be interesting to see. 2 nights ago, I think Jay Vando had a great game, 20 points, 17 rebounds, and he's leading the Summer League in rebounds. So although it was clear like his decision-making wasn't the strongest, his raw ability is definitely there.
Well, and I believe it was Nick Kosmider with The Athletic was just talking about how the buzz around Vanderbilt is similar to the buzz around Morris. a year ago, and so he thinks that shows you that he's ready to be in the NHL or the NBA because he might be ready to be in the NHL.
He would be a beast of a defenseman.
Really tall guys are always interesting. But I think he's the one that may be able to make the biggest difference. I also thought the UNC guy was pretty good. He was the only other noticeable guy.
Yeah, Jordan Davis,
Yeah.
who ended up then having a really bad game the following. Yeah, I like him. He seems like you'll kill it in Australia, and we'd love to see you in a couple years. I was really bummed out that Vlatko Cancar, potential small forward from Slovenia, I believe, he just looked way too slow. He has like a decent offensive game. He can hit those threes as a 6'10" dude, but absolutely got burned on the defensive end. In what was an otherwise pretty boring game, he got to be on the receiving end of a few big dunks.
And he feels like the kind of player that Nuggets fans really want to succeed, and so he's getting more coverage because of that, and maybe looked at it a different way because of that. But I agree, I don't see him making a big difference this year. Yeah. And I think if he makes the team, I guess I'll be surprised if it's not on a 2-way contract.
Totally, a 2-way contract might do well for him, but he seems just like a less polished Wancho, and Nuggets fans love Wancho more than. There's more love for Wancho than there's space to love Vlatko, unfortunately. And I think from the national standpoint, the biggest deal of the game we got to see was just Michael Porter Jr. and Bol being very large, not playing.
We got to see them on the sidelines, and that was there was a lot more sideline watching than you'd expect because it was like there were NBA people in the house. Like Doris Burke was calling the game. Michael Malone was on the other side. Brad Stevens came over and did an interview with Doris, and like some people got autographs. The worst signature I have ever seen. It was just a scribble this guy got on the back of his shirt from Brad Stevens. So.
Yeah, he was super happy about it, but it was not the most impressive signature. Certainly not one who say, "Oh, Brad Stevens signed this." It was like, no, you just accidentally brushed up against a Sharpie somewhere.
There were some kids behind us that were obsessed with Jamal Murray being in the building and decided they would rather try to follow Murray around the complex than stay and watch the Nuggets-Boston game in hopes of getting his autograph. One of the kids, I think this was before you came in, said, "My whole weekend would be made if we got Jamal Murray's autograph."
Which is fair, because if you're in Las Vegas and not 21, there's nothing to do. A Jamal Murray autograph would really top it off. Yeah, it was really interesting seeing Jamal walk into the building. It's like, wow, he's the richest person here by far. Besides maybe Danny Ainge. No, but even it's just interesting. He's now our marquee point guard of the future, which is still a thing that we talked about in last podcast that I have yet to wrap my brain fully around, but I'm accepting of the things I cannot fully comprehend.
The other thing you were talking about, seeing the jerseys out on the town, we had an interesting conversation with our Uber driver who has a weird parlay that he does. He bets on 6 games individually, and then he takes those 6 teams and puts them in a parlay. And I was like, "Have you won?" And he said, "Yes, the last time I won $7,000. And then I put it back into a parlay and lost it all." So he bet the $7,000 on 6 individual teams and then bet on the parlay again and lost. And it's like, no wonder this is your life. He also was upset that we didn't think Taco Fall was going to be the next greatest player in the NBA. So
yeah, I understand. African pride runs deep, but he just didn't. In our game, he looked like a dude who woke up one day who was 7'6". Like, damn, what? Looked like a tall guy trying to squeeze into an economy class seat on an airplane, and that you just didn't see the mobility. But also, shout out to sports gambling, as I just said that I doubt I'll put money on a game in the near future. Further down the road, as you said, that could become a big problem. I already love watching sports for the emotional gratification. If there's money on board too.
Well, and the Nuggets basically pretty consistently were 20-1 odds everywhere to win the championship, but at Caesars they were 15-1 odds, which is bad for the gambler, but it's interesting just thinking about that. Like, if you said the Nuggets have a 1 in 15 chance to win the championship, that feels pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
But the other thing was, so we did the whole exploration of Vegas. We probably were at 10 hotels. We went to Old Vegas. It was a crammed 36 hours.
Yeah,
and then we found ourselves at a undisclosed bar. And we sat down at the bar, and the Nuggets coaching staff was sitting right there looking at us like, why are these people wearing Nuggets jerseys here?
Yeah, they seemed as surprised as anybody that Nuggets fans were in Vegas. Unfortunately, I didn't. I was too busy looking at Wes Unseld Jr. to notice that Coach Malone was just a few seats down from him. And I think at that point we were both wiped out to the point that there was no way we were going to go up to them. I have to assume that Coach Malone would have a better signature than Brad Stevens, but they just looked like such regular dudes.
They could blend in so well. And I mean, I've interviewed Malone a couple of times, but I was in some ways glad that it wasn't George Karl or one of the other coaches that I've interviewed a lot where they like might be able to recognize me. It was like just a guy in a Jokic shirt. And then Mark Jackson walked in. It was that was the weirdest part. It was just like we were literally in the middle of basketball in Vegas.
Yeah. Our hotel at the Luxor was not the Pinnacle, but further down, wherever the hell we were. I'm sure there was probably a very important brunch that happened earlier that day.
So I think my takeaway from Summer League is it's not great as a single event, like going to a single game. I think I could see if you really wanted to like sort of get the feel of Summer League, go for the whole Summer League, commit to going, seeing a lot of games, looking at it like a scout, maybe being like our friend and betting on the games. Yeah. But I think that it's not what you think of as like going to an international game. It's much more like going to almost like a college basketball preseason game where it's like you just know it's not going to be the best effort from anybody. And I mean, we went to see Porter and maybe Bull, and we didn't get to see that. I think that would have changed it a little bit.
Totally.
But I think unless the opportunity came where we were just going to go for the whole week, and I'm not sure we would even enjoy that. That's a lot of time in Vegas.
Yeah, I'd spend a lot of money in 36 hours of like 5 days, dude.
So I think that is our conclusion. It was definitely a summer league, but there's a reason the NBA is not played there all the time.
Yeah, totally.
And then the other big Nuggets news, I mean, there's been a ton of news since we last recorded, which was like a week ago. I think. But, there was the Kawhi Leonard to the Clippers, which we were both excited about. There was the most recent trade of Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook, sending Russell Westbrook to Houston and Chris Paul out into the universe, and we don't know where he's going to end up.
Yeah, well, and also like the 15 years worth of first-round picks that Oklahoma City gets. They have every chance of building a super team in 2029.
And one of those first-round picks, of course, is the Nuggets, because the Nuggets gave up their first-round pick for Grant.
Yeah, Jeremy Grant. A dude who I think as an opposing fan never gave much thought about, but now I am so hyped about this human with whom I had almost no opinion of previously, which is always an interesting shift.
The basketball experts are really into him, and like people that maybe pay a little more attention than we do outside of the Nuggets. This happens to me a lot in the NHL where there'll be a trade and everyone will be like, I can't believe that guy's going anywhere. And I'm like, I've never heard of him before. Like, I know he's on the team. He's made no impact on my life. And then you're like, have to scramble.
Yeah.
That was sort of how that Burakovsky trade with Washington was with me with the Avs, where everyone was like, oh man, like we love him here in Washington. And it was like, really? He might be like the 11th guy that I've heard of on Washington. And I sort of feel that way about Grant, where he's like the 7th guy I've heard of on the Thunder.
Yeah.
And now he's like the guy for the Nuggets who's like has a lot of promise on.
Well, I mean, the Ringer just put out an article that he was perhaps the best NBA move in the offseason, which, I mean, such a great clickbait headline given the fact that the face of the NBA has changed so quickly in the last 2.5 weeks. But he seems to check off every list of what we need as a wing defender, a dude who can shoot from three reliably. And the Nuggets haven't lost anybody besides Trey Lyles. We hardly knew ye.
And Leiden. You forgot about Leiden.
Oh, Tyler draft day decision Leiden.
We did see a few Mitchell jerseys in Vegas, and we were just thinking, like, Utah is now, like, the closest thing to the Nuggets out there. Like, they're, like, neck and neck for this, like, not, like, superstar squad, but, like, maybe good enough to win.
Yeah,
and it's like we gave them one of those pieces for Lyles and Leiden, who are no longer on the team.
Yeah, so we've fully completed our mistake, and we'll get to own that. Yeah, shout out. I can't wait to hate Utah more. They've got quite a potent squad. So, yeah, the West is going to be a bloodbath, as they normally talk about, but I think more than ever, there's so much balance with all of the superstar duos now. I mean, LeBron and AD, I still think take the cake because that's going to be a fun team to hate. Of course, the Clippers, Kawhi and Paul George, and now James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Also, perhaps the most loathsome duo of players you can imagine.
And you still have Portland, who will just be hated forever.
For Portland, forever, a hole in my heart.
But now Oklahoma City is just like a team, which has not happened since they became the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like they, had Durant and Westbrook then, and sort of built around that. And so now they're just a team.
You've done well for yourself, Oklahoma City. I met a dude a couple weeks ago who he just looked too cool to be from OKC. And I was like, what y'all be doing out there? Apparently, like, it's a full city with services and some type of entertainment. So it'll be really interesting to see how they build from the ground up now as no longer a marquee destination for free agents when like it was with KD and Westbrook. So that'll be interesting. I don't hate OKC. I appreciate it. Just one less team we have to worry about going into the season.
I think you hated OKC a couple of years ago when Westbrook had that triple-double and people were going crazy.
Oh, yeah. The triple-double game-winning shot to knock the Nuggets out of the playoffs. I mean, I have no love for Westbrook still, and certainly now more so with the Thunder, but everything is moving so fast at this point.
Well, and just for the Thunder, I mean, Robertson should be back, CU Buff, and Danilo Gallinari's on their team now, so it's like a team we can like and just be like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah, right.
So I'm excited for that. We also saw former CU Buff George King. He played in the Utah game before, and he looks exactly the same as he looked in his 5 years over 4 seasons at CU. And it sort of left you wanting more still, and it was like, George, like, you're so close. Like, it won't take that much, but I don't know that he's going to make that team.
Yeah, but I'd like one thing. The worst part about NFL preseason is just watching dudes who, oh, I'm a fan, knowing that they probably won't make the team, and that's probably the end of their football career. In the NBA, at least, all the dudes, like George King, probably won't make it on a team, but then he'll go play in Estonia or somewhere and make a little bit of change, Philippines. That would be an interesting story to follow. It's just like the dudes who are always on the bubble in the different places they find themselves in over the course of a basketball career.
And just so everyone knows, if the Nuggets get a top 4 seed, which I still think we both think is possible, a certain 104.3 The Fan personality is going to buy everyone a beer. So you can go check that out if you want to.
Really?
Yes.
Really taking those level shots out of the best team in Denver?
It's, the guy that writes the worst articles over there.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to take a moment to say rest in peace to Orange and Blue 760, which is no more. Which never should have been a thing in the first place, but All Broncos All the Time has been replaced by Freedom 760, where you can find Rush Limbaugh, so don't miss out on that.
Oh, good. Good God. Well, moving from the Nuggets which is interesting. It's their off season, and it still feels like the most important thing to talk about.
Luckily, after this weekend, we should just get a break. Like, it should just be nothing happens for a month.
Yeah.
But who knows if that'll happen.
It has been a whirlwind. But how about our now back at 500 Colorado Rockies?
Yeah, so the official second half of baseball starts this weekend. The Rockies are facing off 3 against Cincinnati and then 4 against the Giants, including a makeup. They need to at least win 4. They probably need to win 5 or 6 after how bad they finished off before the All-Star break. Kyle Freeland's back in the rotation starting Saturday. He had a very rough start to his AAA experience, but I would recommend a piece on The Athletic by Nick Groke, where he talks about how they basically, Freeland has 5 pitches. They made him get rid of 3 of those pitches while he was in AAA.
Oh, wow.
Just focus on his fastball and his slider to try to get his command back. And they feel like he's made a lot of strides there, and they've been able to add things back in. But that's sort of where the hope lies, was just that the hope is that he was just so out of control, he had no pitches he could go to, that now he has reformed himself, and we can at least get rookie year Kyle Freeland back, where he, maybe not quite rookie year, almost rookie year. I don't know that he's going to almost throw a no-hitter, but like early season Kyle Freeland, where he can manage a 6 to 7 inning game, is sort of what we're hoping for. They need that because Marquez has been inconsistent. Gray has, for the most part, been their best starter over the last month. Their bullpen's been a mess, and then they have Lambert, who's been pitching, and Senzatella, who's been okay, as their other starters. It's kind of a mess. And their hitting's been a lot better, but it's sort of fallen off over the last couple weeks. The All-Stars, were really leading the charge. Blackman, Arenado, Story, and Dahl. Blackman hit a home run in the game, and Story got on base. The American League lost for the 7th year in a row. Won. The National League lost for the 7th year in a row, and I feel like the National League's won like 3 times in my lifetime now. It's just a travesty. But the Rockies need to make some moves in the next couple weeks if they're going to contend. The wild card spot is very crowded. The National League is very crowded except for the Dodgers. And so if they want one of those 2 wild card spots, they've got to get some pitching, and they're going to need some of their hitters to carry the weight a little bit more. So I would not say we're in a good place with the Rockies.
Yeah,
right
okay,
now.
that seemed like as lukewarm as a position that they can be in. Because we had our doom and gloom episode when they were 3-12 to start the season, and then they've been on a pretty consistent rise up. What team do you expect to see at the end of the season? Is it one that, even if they don't make it to the playoffs, has fight, or is it going to be the team that really never had it together and they were just big pretenders for the last 2 months?
I think that it depends on the next 3 weeks. Like literally, maybe even the next 2 weeks. By the end of July, we should know what we have because the trade deadline will have passed. We'll have that team. If they are not at least at 500 by then, the season's over.
Yeah,
Like if they can't even hang in there at 500, they're done, and it's going to be a rough August, September after competing the last 2 years. I think that, the problem is so many teams are ahead of them, including in their own division. Right now, the wild card standings, hold on, let me pull them up. Washington's at 47-42. The Phillies are at 47-43. Milwaukee's at 47-44. Arizona's at 46-45. San Diego's at 45-45. St. Louis is at 44-44. And Colorado's at 44-45, tied with Pittsburgh. So those are all of the teams you're competing with for 2 spots. The other divisions are still up in the air. I think that, it's possible. Well, it looks like Atlanta's run up. They're 6 games up in their division. The Cubs are only 0.5 games up. So those 3 central teams, Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Pittsburgh, are also battling for the division. So this is going to be hard. They have played their way down, losing those last 5 games. 6 games at the end of the first half was just a mess. The 2-4 homestand where they beat the Dodgers twice and then lost 4, including 2 to Houston, was a mess. It's just You can't do that, and they're going to have to play better, obviously, in the second half. It's probably going to be, 90 wins, at least, maybe 92 wins to get a wild card spot. So they need to be 8 games above 500, and they're 1 game below 500 right now. So they got to go plus 11 probably the rest of the way to make the postseason, and that's probably maybe is the second wild card spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the pitching can get settled and they get more consistent with the offense, then they're a hard-to-beat team. I think we've seen enough to know that at least, but that does require several things to come together. Looking at Ian Desmond's batting average, I feel is a great bellwether for the rest of the team, because if Ian Desmond can continue raking, that means there's other people who are at least getting on base. But I think he was 4-0 in 5 of those 6 games. So his batting slump, weirdly, a dude who at the beginning of the season I thought was on the bubble, has really helped step up to keep the team afloat, and then sometimes actually driving home wins. So it's not wrong to want to rely on your all-stars. Got 4 dudes in the all-star game. That should be enough to get you into a wild card spot. But really, baby Freeland, welcome home. We really hope that he got fixed, whatever that was. You're feeling good and ready to throw some heat.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing you can say about this team is they've had much better offense. If they had this offense last year, they probably win the division.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if they don't make the playoffs this year, this is year 1 of 3 for keeping Arenado, because he can opt out after 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be a failure. You're looking at needing to make the playoffs and advance in one of those next 2 years probably to keep him. And
that's like a deep run.
Yeah, I mean, that's winning a series.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It's not a great time for the Rockies. But luckily for the Rockies, Broncos training camp got moved up a week because of the Hall of Fame game. So it starts next week. So if the Rockies are going to bury their heads in the sand and lose from here on out, at least a lot of people will be distracted. We'll just
exactly.
be the sad ones here.
We'll just get to watch Broncos preseason. And it was really interesting at Summer League. There were a bunch of Boston fans, and the dude we were sitting next to is from North Dakota, who's a Celtics fan for some reason, but he's also a big Bronco fan. And he asked me, he's like, how do y'all feel about Flacco? And that was an important reminder that Joe Flacco is the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Life comes at you real fast, man. And most of the news has been since the draft is that Flacco is definitely going to be the starter, to the point that we don't even need to think about Drew Lock for any reason. But I didn't even get a good answer from him. It's like, how do we feel about this team headed into a season that starts in, a month and a half?
Yeah, I think that we don't know. It's one of those situations where it could go a lot of ways. I think if you think that Vance Joseph cost them a couple games last year, maybe you're looking at a 10-6 playoff team. If you don't think that it was mainly Vance Joseph's fault, are we looking at a 6-10 team? We're looking at an 8-8 team. What does Flacco still have left? Because they didn't think he had anything left in Baltimore. There are a lot of questions. They're not going to be solved in the next 5 preseason games. And I think the thing to watch now, just so everyone knows, is who will be the first person to write should Drew Lock be the starter? When will the first lock chant happen in preseason? The Broncos' 2 home games are the last 2 games, so when does that happen? And what do things look like to start the season? How long of a leash do we think Flacco has? Has the defense gelled again under Vic Fangio? And have any of the offensive weapons developed beyond last year? Because they need the receivers to get better. And maybe is Emmanuel Sanders still on this team? I think that's still up in the air come week 1. So those are the things to watch for in training camp. And you can get all that coverage with everybody else, because we are not going to be the ones that have the minute-by-minute updates.
Yeah, right. I'm sure there's a few radio stations who don't even realize that Broncos aren't playing every Sunday. But for us, we will definitely have updates once the training camp starts and then moving into preseason, which is always an exciting time as a sports fan. But any other pieces?
I don't think so. Enjoy that weather out there. This is hopefully not going to be the slowest part of the year. Hopefully the Rockies are going to get together, but if they cool off, we're like, I think we saw what was it? We're 89 days away from opening night for the Avalanche, and then right behind that, the Nuggets. So
88 days.
It's happened in less than 3 months.
Whole lot changes real fast, but if the Rockies don't do anything, at least you can get outside the mountains right now. We're out of a drought, y'all. Go enjoy the outdoors. Hop on a river raft and float down some Class A rapids.